And we are back. It's been a minute. We are joined by Mr. Ant Middleton. Ant is an author, an adventurer, ex-UK Special Forces, a family man, an all-round nice guy. And welcome to the show.
That's quite an intro. Thank you so much. The nice guy. Maybe not. No, I am a nice guy. I am a nice guy. A lot of people think that I'm a screaming, shouting chief instructor, but there's so much more underneath, which I'm sure you'll unfold.
Absolutely, mate. Look, thank you so much for joining us on the show. That was very much a summarized introduction, and you've achieved so much. You've done so much. Known around the world for the work that you've done on TV as well, with SAS Who Dares Wins in the UK and also in Australia. But doing a little bit of research pre this podcast, what got you there is an incredibly powerful story. One of the things that we've spoken about on this show is imposter syndrome.
Yep.
And going through your life journey at a very surface level from some of the content that I listened to and some of the things that I read, your journey from France into the military, your talk of becoming aware of and then learning how to manage your demons, as you put it, as you try to fit in different stages of your life. I think it's something that's very relatable because so many of us are trying to fit in different stages of our lives, and not many of us have managed to do so in the way that you have with authenticity and pivoting in different stages of your life. So if we could start with that as a lens, can you take us through the journey from France into the military?
I think everyone goes through life where they put up a defense mechanism. You know, they wear certain body armors, certain masks in order to fit in and in order to feel accepted. People want to feel accepted, especially when you're young, right? And you'll do everything outside of what's really true to you to fit in. So you talk about me being in France, that culture shock of me being in France. Well, guess what? I was a UK kid moving over to France. I had to become a French kid. Now, how do I do that? I have to blend in. I have to make people, like me. I have to be sort of vulnerable to a point where I need to forget about everything that I was and become this new person. Because I can remember going to France, it was just like a huge culture shock from the, let's say the drinking social culture of the UK, of that island mentality, to a really laid back, relaxed European attitude. And a kid that if I acted like I acted in the UK, I'd be ostracized. So I had to completely deconstruct myself to build myself back up, not necessarily in a way that I wanted, but in a way that I had to. And I learned that from such a young age. So then I jumped from France to the UK to join the army. Now talk about another culture shock. So I went from this chilled out French kid that at the age of 13, 14 was down the bowling alley drinking coffee, and having the odd cigarette and, just like chilling like that, to jumping into a male dominant organization, back to the drinking culture, which is huge in the UK, and the fighting culture. So again, talk about confusion, talk about me stripping what I had down. And the reason why I had to strip the French kid away is because he was too vulnerable. People would take advantage. People would take advantage of my kindness, of my politeness, of my respect. So it was completely different armor. And I suppose I just got to a point later on in life where I was just sick of wearing different masks, sick of having to break myself back down and build myself back up to other people, to other standards and not my own standards. And it was a point that I got to in the military, and mainly in the Marines. When I joined the Marines when I was 24, 25, I was just like, just be yourself, and people will accept you for who you are. They won't accept you. People are going to like you. They're going to dislike you. Again, at a young age, I think we're people pleasers. We want people to love us, and we don't love ourselves, and we neglect ourselves. And it got to a point where I neglected myself so much that I didn't recognize myself, to a point where I isolated myself. People didn't want to be around me. I was no longer this fun, loving sort of guy. I was just this robot that I thought I needed to be in order to please people. So I suppose from such a young age, I've learned the hard way, but I've learned quickly.
So it's like a survival mechanism.
It's hugely a survival mechanism. It's something that you do even nowadays, you know, when you leave your house, even though I'm true to myself and I won't change who I am, my values, I change, I adapt. You know, I got the chameleon effect. You know, you adapt to your surroundings, but it's really important that you don't change your values of who you are. You don't change your true self, because that's when you lose yourself. And that's when I believe, you know, sort of mental health issues kick in, and you start to lose your identity, you start to lose your purpose, and then self-worth, all of that just starts to spiral out of control. And before you know it, you find yourself in a dark sort of psychological hole that if you don't acknowledge it and recognize it, you probably won't dig yourself out of it.
You're stuck there for a
yeah,
while.
you're stuck there for a while. Yeah.
So maybe talk to us a little bit about that process, you know, of finding yourself again, understanding your values and recognizing what's important for you, and then living by that.
Yeah, it's trial and error, dear. It's the big falls, you know, the big failures, the big stumbles. You know, not just tripping yourself up, getting back up and dusting your knee off and going, oh, what could I? It's like, right, I'm at the bottom of the pit here. My shovel's broken. My pickaxe is gone. I'm looking. It's like, how did I get here? And it takes drastic change like that to happen. Whether for me it was leaving the army, where I knew that, I'm just being this aggressive young kid that was forced into fighting. I realized I was good at fighting, but I hated fighting, but I was good at it. So I'd use that as a defense mechanism, but that's not like me. I find myself drinking every weekend with the lads, and I'm not a big drinker. I don't drink, but it became a huge part of my identity and a huge part of my life. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom through drinking, and not having a problem with it, but through drinking and violence, that I found myself, you know, in police cells every weekend. I found myself, you know, being dragged back to camp by the military police, and it just wasn't me. And that was a turning point where I thought, well, I've got to leave the army because it's not who I am. That changed, and I joined the Marines, and the Marines were a lot more mature. I could be myself a lot more. But again, you still got that sort of culture that you have to follow. And I wanted to go on Special Forces selection. And I can remember going out one night, and there were SF lads out, you know, SF dudes are out in the town. So everyone knew they were out in the town. Like, oh, he's in the SBS, he's in the SAS. And I can remember sort of becoming a bit too acquainted with them and drinking with them and making a bit of a fool of myself, because I want, you know when you just want to be. And after that moment, again, it's just like, wow, you wake up in the morning and so, you know, you get someone that comes up to you and goes, you really peed off, you know, so-and-so. And that, you know, that guy was in the, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, why is it just being, you know, a bit too aggressive, you know, trying to impress people, and then I thought, oh no, I've ruined my chances of doing what I've always wanted to do and join the Special Forces. So again, there's moments like that where you think, right, things have to change. And all that has to change is you just have to revert back to being who you are. And I knew that I was a good person. I knew that I was positive. I knew that I had super good attributes. Of course, we all have our demons. We all have, you know, the negative aspects to us, which you shouldn't ignore. But I just went back to being who I was. And it was so refreshing just going into everything just as Ant Middleton, just as myself. Realizing, I suppose the hardest part of it is realizing that not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to be on your side. Not everyone's going to, you know, attract to you in a positive way. You're going to have your enemies. You're going to have your negativity thrown at you. And once you're okay with that, then you can be true to yourself. You can move on and go. But that's such a big hurdle to overcome, especially for youngsters. This is what I say to my children. You know, the fear of not being liked, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of not being accepted. You know, that fear that encapsulates youngsters nowadays. The fear of missing out, wanting to be involved in stuff, because everything, right? If you can harness that, not get rid of it because you need it, you need to use it to make it work to your advantage. If you can harness that and make it work to your advantage, then it allows you to be true to who you are. And then, like I said before, it took trial and error for me to realize that. And some big falls, some big major falls in my life that I classed as big, where I was just like, who are you? Why are you doing this? Just be yourself. And again, you get your you know, you get your backlash for being yourself because there's a certain narrative, especially in certain organizations, that you're supposed to adhere to, that you're supposed to follow. But that's the price that I'm willing to take, knowing that if I stay true to my path, then I don't wander into the storm. The storm comes over me, and I just stay where I am, and stay true to my path. And I know that the storm will pass because I'm not trying to please people. I'm not trying to fit into that narrative or into that mold.
So one of the challenges, I think, as we get older, we become more comfortable with ourselves, right? And we start to become at peace with not everybody liking us.
Yeah.
But I think we're all a product of our upbringing, and your movement as a child would have wired you into, I need to fit in with the next place that I go, right? I bounced around 11 schools as a kid. So multiple countries. I had different accents. At one point I sounded right? American, at one point I sounded South African, at one point like exactly the same thing. I was just trying to fit in everywhere that I went. And it was only later in life that I started to realize that like I'm just me and that's not going to change. And I need to become at peace with that. And if people like me, that's great. And if they don't, that's, it is what it is.
But it's mad, like you say, how you change, Tom, just going back to what you just said, the accents, you go out of your way to try and develop that accent. It's not just naturally given to you and you naturally absorb what you see or what you go out of your way to do it, right? And like you said with the accents, you go out of your way to sound like them, to walk like them, to talk like them, to fit in, and ultimately you're neglecting everything natural about yourself. How all those languages, all those accents, you would have naturally just picked up one anyway, because you're a blend of your environment anyway. But when you try and force it, you lose your identity, and then you find yourself, off your moral compass sort of sways off true north, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then you're like, and then you spend your whole life going, right, let me get it back here, and then and it is time and choice.
I don't like that music actually, or I don't like
100%.
I'm just doing it because they're doing it, and like. So my question was like, when you're a kid, I think you're predisposed to trying to fit in, right? That's I think that's for many reasons. How do you mentioned your children?
Yeah.
How do you instill that in your kids at a younger age? You don't want them to go through the rock bottom low points that you've had in your life, and that's part of a journey, but that's 20s and 30s, and then maybe you become more comfortable from there on out. But if you're speaking to kids that are teenagers, that are in the world of social media, which is, 10xing the situations that we had when we were kids, how do you teach them those values, or how to approach that challenge in a way that doesn't require rock bottom?
It's very simple. Very simple. Be present. Be present with your children. Be present with life. Be present with yourself. And children learn from what they see.
Yeah.
You can talk to children all you want. Sit them down, scream at them. Have a conversation with them. It will go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Children, especially from a young age, they learn from what they see. So this is what I always say. It's not complicated. Be present, lead by example. And I had a great sort of comeback to this, because I never put on to my children, this is how hard I work to pay for your bill, to pay for your iPad, for you to go to private school. Never ever say that. I'd never do that. And it was probably about 5 years ago. My daughter's now 16. It's probably about 5 years ago when she was 11. She picked me up from the airport. I just got back from climbing. I think it was Mount Everest. I climbed in 2018, a few years back. Or it was a trip that I came back from. But I just remember the conversation. I don't remember the trip. And I got into the car. My wife and children picked me up. I got into the car. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And then we're talking, hey, everyone missing me. Big cuddles, kisses, etc. I'm sat there, and my daughter puts her hand on my shoulder. This is when the conversation's not gone dry, but it's a bit quiet. And she came up close to me and she said, Daddy, I really appreciate how hard you work, and what you do for all of us. Just nice. A simple conversation like that just reinforced my beliefs of just leading by example. I've never ever spoke to her about how hard I work, what I provide. she identified that in that small moment out of the whole conversation and the whole trip that I done. I remember that small sentence that she said to me, and that was just confirmation or affirmation that I'm doing the right thing. As long as I'm present and I'm giving the best version of myself to my children and I'm leading by example, I know that the eyes are on me 24/7 when I'm around my family. And I know when I'm at work, the eyes are on me. They are. You know, it doesn't matter what position you work in. Eyes are on you from everyone, especially with your family, because they look up to you as a parent, a mother or a father, as a role model. You are their bright light. You are their source of information. So I always say, just be present with your children, and be careful how you act around them, and what you say as well. As the teen years creep in, or even the younger years, they repeat what you say. Yeah. And that's just you, without even realizing it. That's just you not brainwashing them, but that's you teaching them, because they're going to repeat what you say. Because guess what? You're their hero. Yeah. They're going to act like you act. Why? Because they want to be you. Yeah. So I'm massively conscious and present around my children, knowing that what I say and mainly what I do has a huge impact on molding them as an individual, on how they're going to act. So don't get me wrong, there's certain points when they get things wrong, and I have to sit down and really talk to them and communicate to them why it's wrong. But I let them make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes in life, you don't make anything. And I say to my children, my wife sometimes says, why don't you let them trip up? Yeah. I'll pick them up and dust their knee off and push them back in the fold. Yeah. I always say, give them enough room to trip up, or not to obviously hang themselves. Because that's being a bad parent, right? Yeah. But trial and error, 100%. That's the best way I learn. I don't want them to fall to the depths that I fell, but I certainly want them to fall into a crevasse, deep enough to scramble up and fall down. But just be present, and they will learn from what they see.
Interesting. Leadership. Mm-hmm. There's very few people that I've spoken to that have got the wealth of experience that you have when it comes to leadership, through the military, through what you do from in all areas of your life. What are some of the main tenets of leadership? What have you built your knowledge, your understanding, your learning on?
Yeah, leadership is quite simple as well. And again, I like to think that life is quite simple if you simplify it. Leadership is being passionate about a task or about a career, and almost obsessed with it, obsessed to the point where, you live and breathe it, it inside out, back to front. It's you're passionate about it, you care about it. And once you can walk the walk, once you've gone through the process of obviously, fusing passion with action, then anyone can be a leader. I find leadership super simple. Yeah, I believe
anyone can be a leader.
I believe that anyone can be a leader, and leadership starts at home. And if you can lead yourself, it starts with discipline. If you can lead yourself, then you can lead a body of individuals. But if you can't, this is where a lot of leaders fall down. Their personal life is a mess. Their home life is a mess. Their head is a mess. Therefore, they come in and they try and make up for it in the workspace or in social circles. You always get a leader within social circles, within friendship circles as well. They want to, they want to step forward and be the leader. But in a workplace, you just have to be obsessed with your trade. I believe that, and you have to walk the walk. You have to have gone through the process. I think where leaders fall down is when they've been chucked something that they have to figure out on the move, or that they're not too savvy about, or too passionate about. Now when I mean this passion, rolls over into obsession. You have to be obsessed with what you do in order to have an authentic view and decision making, right? In moving forward as a team leader or in whatever organization that you're in. Because then it comes from an experienced place. It comes from the heart, which is super important. And then if you get it right or wrong, you know that you can just look around you, reorganize, regroup, and re-attack the situation. So
interesting. You talk a lot about authenticity. I think that ties back into our earlier conversation around imposter syndrome and fitting in, and then becoming more authentic to yourself.
Yeah.
I think in leadership, it's exactly the same thing. The difference between a boss and a leader in an office environment, obviously very different to the military, but in an office.
No, not too dissimilar. Leadership's leadership, right?
There's some similarities,
You know?
but in an office environment, it's very clear to see someone that's just in a position of authority versus someone that actually commands respect and is a true leader. And I think that you're exactly right there. I mean, it's authentically being the person that you're trying to portray, rather than just showing up and things are being done just because you have that position within that ecosystem.
See, I lead differently. I lead from within my circle. So I lead, my team is here. I lead from within the team. A lot of leaders lead
Above.
from above or
leadership,
on the side.
Yeah.
And this is where I suppose the office space is different to the military, but leadership is leadership. They've been put in a role where, ego kicks in. They've got their own separate office. They've got their own, separate desk or whatever it may be. They're there. It's like, right, what is the team trying to achieve? You're a team leader doesn't mean that you're excluded from the team or in a
are you part of the team?
Yeah, there's a hierarchical structure that if it breaks down, well, guess what? There's a chain of command, and it keeps it nice and simple. You need that chain of command. Therefore, you need positions of authority. You need positions of hierarchy, because it's a simple and effective way to get to the solution the quickest. But that's all that leadership is.
True.
Okay, it's not necessarily a case of right, you're here and do we go and see the boss or not? The boss should be like boom, 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 boom. Not micromanaging, but if you got your bit, right, bang, job
Involved.
done, good to go.
Yeah.
If there's a breakdown, that's where leadership comes in.
Yeah.
So people have got it flip reverse, where they think leadership is being, I'll tell you what to do, and it's like, no, what's the thing? If there's a breakdown of communication, if there's a breakdown of the task that it's not working, it's my job to go, right, where do I start off first? Right, Tom, this is where it broke down here, bang, bang. That's what a good leader is about. It's about identifying the strengths and weaknesses within their team. And if there's a problem that presents itself, there's one voice in the room. Yeah. Okay, where do I go from here? Right, where's the breakdown happened? It's happened here. Tom, you don't need to be involved, dear. This is what we're going to do, mate. Okay, we need to get this, and this done. Job done. Yeah. So leadership is actually, I find it a very easy position to be in, because I'm only really needed when the shit hits the fan, shall we say?
I think with leadership and high performing teams, there's quite a lot of components and elements that bring it together. You mentioned leading from within the team, being on the ground, definitely 100% relate to that. What other sort of elements do you feel are important for a team to function in a way that's efficient, but also building trust? In an environment perhaps that you're meeting people for the very first time. What would you do to bring everybody together and create a highly functioning team?
You're a good team, a good leader when you've got good fellowship. So a lot of people neglect fellowship, not fellowship, fellowship. So leadership is one aspect of things, and then there's fellowship. Now, fellowship is realizing that there is a hierarchical structure but however, you are a leader in your own right, in your area, in your field. And that's how a team should operate. Everyone should have a role to do. And guess what? As a leader, you're the leader in that role. So if I need anything within that field, guess who I come to, Tom? I come to you. But that team then has that crossover, right? That you put the circle and the circle, there's that common denominator between the team. So the phalanx is always connected. So I can go here, but there's a certain area of expertise. I think as a good leader, it's about sitting down and making people realize that self-worth, making people realize their purpose. That cog is so important. And I always say to people as a leader, and even when I was in a fellowship position in the military, that the smallest cogs are the hardest to replace. Do not underestimate your job. But that comes down to the leader. Do not underestimate your self-worth, your importance, your purpose within this team. That's how high functioning teams operate, because I haven't got time to be over everything. I've got time to, as the hierarchical sort of structure, I've got time to come to you and give you my experience, give you my knowledge and my energy and my passion. I want to be here. Right? What's your role? Right. This is exactly how. If you've got any problems, come and see me.
And that's got to be then translated through those sub teams as well, right?
100%. But then it goes down to fellowship. It goes down to the individual, right? Yeah. And like I said, you're a good leader when you've got good fellowship, and you got good fellowship when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And people jump authentic, and they go, "That was my problem.
Yeah.
I
take ownership.
I didn't put the work in here, or I misplaced this, or just that is when when someone goes bang. Because guess what I'm going to do as a leader? Bang! I know where the problem is straight away. No questions asked. Bang! We're going to flood into that area into that field. The whole team's going to flood into it. And we're going to go. What can we bring? You can't bring anything. You can't bring anything. What can we bring into this? Bang! You've got the problem, and then you can, if you've got a good team around you, you're going to solve the problem very, very quickly. And that's where leadership really, really counts. I think is just making people realize what their purpose, why they're there, their role, which is super important, and what they need to do to achieve that role. And again, not overworking and over engineering. And that's when when people go, right, because this is what I say to people, everyone can be a leader. If you feel like you're a leader in your field, God, you're gonna work, right? You're gonna go, right, let's not only see how far I can push this organization, but let's see how far I can push myself. I've been given a huge responsibility here, to learn, to grow, to become a better version of myself, but not only that, to probably move up a level or a tier in the organization. It's just how you deliver that as a leader. I think it's super important. But that's where I say I always function from within a team, because then I can monitor that fellowship, and I can know when I need to work on a cog. And again, going back to high performance teams, within high performance teams, everyone has a specific role.
Yeah.
It's not like in a normal office where you're probably doing the same email as this person here, as this person, I'm looking at every single person. I'm looking at their energy, I'm looking at their attitude, I'm looking at their discipline, I'm looking at what they're trying to achieve. I'm looking at everything, and that's what I believe a leader is. They're the hardest working person in the room.
Amazing. I think there's so much relatability between what you're talking about with the military and the office space that I hadn't heard it put in that way before. Big mountains.
Yeah, do you know what? And with what I do, I don't reinvent the wheel. I give people that kick yourself moment. They go, I know it's there. It's just I didn't know how to break it down, or I didn't know how to sort of put it or phrase it in this way, or mold it in this way. And it's only because, again, that trial and error life that I've been through and that I go through. I'm not scared to put myself out there. Like I said, in my heart of hearts, if I know for me and for the organisation and for the team, that's the right thing to do. Whether I get it right or wrong, I won't think about the failure or success. I'll just be present in the moment, and I'll do it. And then all of a sudden, if I go, whoa, that was wrong, then I haven't done it on purpose. It's it's in my heart of hearts. I thought that was the right decision to do.
Yeah.
But I just go, right, actually, and I've been in a leadership position where I've gone, I've got this wrong, guys.
Yeah.
And the moment you humanize yourself like that, the team, that's where fellowship comes in. I'll take you back quickly to a moment that I got lost in Afghanistan when I was on tour. I got promoted to section commander. So I was part of a 4-man team. I was part of an 8-man team, but I was the second in command. So I had half the team. So I was in charge of half the team. The section commander's in charge of the whole team. And my section commander had to go home for some reason. So I got field promotion to section commander. So all of a sudden, I've got 8 men underneath myself. I'm having to navigate, map read, and because my job as second in command was to help the section commander in navigation. I'd navigate behind him just to make sure that everything was right, even though he'd take charge and navigate, etc., tell us where to go. So that role was all of a sudden embedded on me, And we were doing like 14, 15-hour patrols every single day
Wow.
in this certain area of Afghanistan. And we were patrolling along, probably 6-7 hours into the patrol, and I'm walking along, and I'm all of a sudden come up to this built-up area. So we come off the fields into this built-up area, and the alleys are getting sort of narrower and narrower, and there's more coming off, and we're walking through, and I'm walking through these built-up. We're all on high alert, looking up the walls, and all of a sudden I get to a cross junction, and I sort of get down on one knee, and I'm like, the other guys, cover certain arcs. I get them all together, so we're all shoulder to shoulder. The whole team's there. They're all 8 of us, and they're like, really on high. They've got eyes like space hoppers. They're like, "What's up, man?" I'm like, "Gather in, guys, gather in." And I looked around. I said to them, "I'm lost." Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I said to them. I said to them, "I'm lost," and they all started laughing. Right? So they're all around me, and they all start laughing. We're in a high,
there could be anything there.
situation. There could be an ambush just around the corner, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm lost," and they all just started laughing. But that was a huge lesson for me in leadership, because I thought to myself, right, I've admitted, I've taken us to a certain point where I thought to myself, I can swallow my pride and probably get us out of here, and just say, I took a little bit of a shortcut, or I could potentially let my ego take charge, lead us into an ambush, get 2 or 3 of us killed, and then have to live with that.
Yeah.
So this was a huge decision that I made to go, right.
Humility.
Humility. But the reaction of them realizing, they knew that I was lost. My 2IC was like, "And I was wondering where you were going." But then all the lads started laughing, but they got boom, boom, boom. Right, bang, man, this is where we were. This is where you went wrong, and you took instead of taking that path, you took this path.
Yeah.
What we need to do is you need to go.
Yeah.
Boom, and talk
That's
about
the power of a team.
The power of the team, like Followship. That's when I knew being a humble leader. The Followship came, but don't get me wrong, when I got back to camp, they used to call, because I was quite big back in the day, they used to call me Atlas. And they called me Mapless for a while. Right, but I'm talking 2-3 days, then the next big thing kicked off in it. But can you imagine if I'd have led them as a leader, led them into an ambush?
You lose trust.
I would have lost my career. I wouldn't have been. I'd have to live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
The lads would probably the rest of the lads that would have been alive would have hated me. That's where I always say, be true to who you are, and we're all gonna make mistakes in life. We're all gonna fail. That's everyday part of life. I failed up to now in my life. I'm gonna fail to the day I die. So are you, dear. So are you, Tom.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The moment you can look at that word and work it to your favor, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people look at failure, or they look at setbacks and they go, "Oh, do you know what I mean? I'm not going to even commit." But therefore, when you don't commit, you limit yourself. You don't learn. You don't grow.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's the whole process of, I call it, of living on autopilot. So Followship and leadership massively come hand in hand, and do not forget the importance of Followship. Because, like I said before, it's the smaller cogs that are the hardest to replace.
It must be interesting to you to look at somebody in a business environment that isn't willing to take that decision because they're too afraid to lose face.
Yeah.
In comparison to what you're dealing with, which is potentially people's lives.
Yeah.
It's it pales into insignificance, doesn't it? Somebody's not willing to sit at the end of the table and say, like, "I've really got this wrong, I'm sorry," versus somebody whose ego often is covering for an insecurity.
Because they don't want someone to talk about them behind their back. They don't want someone to upset someone. Well, again, you're a good leader when you are ruffling feathers, when you are, you are making these tough decisions. Because guess what? Not everyone's going to like the decision that you make.
Absolutely.
And that's absolutely fine, right? Because that's why the world is so fascinating. Why? Because everyone's different. Everyone's got different values, different morals, different attitudes, different approaches to life. So, I never take it personally. And trust me, I get my fair bit of backlash from decisions that I make that stayed true to me, that hasn't necessarily stayed true to other people or resonated with other people.
Yeah, I mean,
but I'm happy with that. I just go, do you know what? I know where my path is. Yeah, I'm being comfortable with myself.
Change of direction slightly. I wanted to ask you about your experience in the mountains.
Yeah.
you and I share a passion for mountains in different ways. I run along them, you climb up them.
Yeah.
Your experience on Everest,
Yeah.
pretty wild story.
Do you know what? Everest
talk us through that.
was a bit of I would say a bit of an ego climb.
Interesting.
You know, and I think Everest is to everyone, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
You know, that first ascent is definitely, you know, I want to stand on top of the world. Mount Everest, highest mountain in the world. That does engulf you. But the interesting story about Everest is I was in mountain troop in the Special Forces, so more climbing. You know, we'd go away to America, to Joshua Tree, we'd climb, I'd lead climb, you know, just learn how to climb certain gradients. Bouldering, you know, not so much mountaineering.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a friend of mine said to me, "And, you know, do you want to climb a few mountains?" I said, "Yeah." I said straight away, "Yeah, Mount Everest." He was like, "Whoa, you know,
calm down.
again, yeah, there was that calm down." But the moment the moment I got that reaction, I was like, "Well, that's at the back of my mind now."
Yeah.
Right? But you know, Everest, yeah, I'll come climbing with you. You know, he wanted to climb the Matterhorn in Switzerland, in Zermatt, Aconcagua in Argentina, Elbrus, which is arguably either in Russia or in Europe. You know, it's still, you know, one of the 7 summits. Where does it sit?
Yeah.
And he said, so he wanted to do sort of like a little rotation of that. So I said, yeah, let's do it. The first time I've ever properly climbed, all in the training or all in the gaining experience to climb Everest, because I had Everest straight away in the back of my head. I was like, right, I'm going to use this as a stepping stone to climb Everest.
Yeah.
We went and climbed all 3 in the winter, didn't summit any of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Matterhorn, we got to a stage where we were just like, we need to turn around.
Oh, wow.
The weather's just so bad. There's
Climbing
no
them
one
in the winter.
right?
That's a serious undertaking.
And then, but this is a great sort of carry on to the story, because I didn't summit it. Did I feel demoralized? No. Did I get what I wanted out of it? Yeah. I realized how brutal the mountains are and how, you know, how unstable they are, how you really, you know, how to act, how to rope up, how to, you know, act as buddy, you know, with your pal. So we went down from there. Then we went and climbed Elbrus in the winter. Done that, probably got about 200 meters from the summit, which is a lot in mountaineering. It's not just like what you think, 200, you know, it's like a good couple of hours. But it was just pure ice. You know, you needed to, we didn't have the ice climbing facilities to then go into an ice climb. Yeah. So we got to as far as we could go in literally 3 or 4 days, you know, just literally smashed it up there. And again, came back down, didn't summit Elbrus. And then I thought, well, I've got to at least summit Aconcagua. Aconcagua sits at 7,000, just below 7,000 meters. So a lot of people use Aconcagua to train to go and climb Everest. And Everest, Aconcagua is the windy mountain. You know, it's really, really windy up there. So again, we smashed up there in a few days. It wasn't long at all. And don't get me wrong, I suffered, you know, headaches and, you know, high altitude sickness. I had a lot, because I was literally just like a madman, just going for it. And we got to Camp 4 on Aconcagua, and the winds were blowing, and we were part of an expedition, part of a group, and the group decided to turn around. But I was like, yeah, you know, I had the choice to go on, but I was like, no, I'm happy. You know, I'm happy. I've got because all I had in my head was Everest. Yeah. So it's really strange, because the first mountain, apart from Snowdon and the one, you know, and Ben Nevis in the, you know, in the UK, are they classed as mountains? You know, I would say yes, but a lot of people would argue with me. But the first mountain I summited was Mount Everest. I know.
Use all of them as training.
I know. I used all of them as training, but the first mountain I summited was Mount Everest, and you know, talk about going from, I was at 6,400 on Aconcagua. That's the highest I'd ever been. Yeah. To then going just below 9,000, which is Everest, 8,898 or something like 8,896, whatever it is. And that's where I became unstuck, was in the death zone. You know, not realizing that the importance of getting up and down as quick as possible, not realizing the importance of time and of oxygen. Because within a death zone, if you're doing it without oxygen, all you have is 30% oxygen. So every step that you're taking, your body is slowly shutting down, dying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a turnaround point. Once you get up through the death zone, 8,000 meters to the summit, if you don't reach a certain time at a certain stage,
You have to turn around.
Normally we use green boots, which is a known mountaineer that passed away. You sort of have that time scale of when you pass green boots. Then you know to turn around, you know, just before the Hillary steps along the balcony. And I got onto the summit because we went up during an electrical storm, and just because there are less people on the mountain. So again, ego, right? It's just a case of, right, I want to stand on the summit. I don't want anyone to be around. You've heard of the traffic in the news.
Yeah.
And I remember there's probably about 12 climbers in total, probably about 20 of us in total with the Sherpas. There's a Russian team, a Chinese team, and myself. And we got to the summit, and lo and behold, I had the summit to myself. I couldn't see anything. Couldn't see the beauty because the storm was like, I could barely see you.
Yeah.
And it got really, really bad. And I decided to wait. I thought, you know what, I'm going to wait for everyone to go down.
Yeah.
And only about 9 people, everyone to go down. Then I'm literally going to be the last person on the summit. I'm going to look around and say, I am the highest person in the world. You know, talk about ego, right? Again, this is acknowledging my faults along the way. But I thought, you know, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not someone that goes and does something twice. I learn from it and then move on. Unless I've failed at that and I need to re-attack it, then it's different. But and I just thought, right, I'm going to have 2 minutes, 3 minutes on the summit. And it wasn't until my Sherpa sort of came back and he's like, sort of gave me a bit of a rollicking.
Yeah.
He says, we need to move. And I realized that those 2, 3, 4 minutes or whatever it was too long. Because when I got to the Hillary step, someone had fallen off the Hillary step.
Oh, wow.
And they'd taken the rope because it's a climb down. Hillary step's like a nice climb up. It's like a nice climb down.
Okay.
They'd fallen off, pinged out a few of the screws, the ice screws, and they were literally hanging 5 to 6 meters off the Hillary step. They had all the rope, and it's literally like a ridge. You know, you're literally walking along the side of a ridge. You're not on the ridge.
Yeah.
You're literally walking, so it's just like the abyss below. So he's literally hanging in the abyss.
Yeah.
I would have been in front of him if I'd have swallowed my ego a bit and gone in and decided to move when the whole team moved. So the whole team was in front of me. So they'd gone. So they were in front of this guy. So I was stuck behind this guy with my Sherpa, just me and my Sherpa, the last people on the mountain.
Oh, wow.
And then guess what? Even when you're on supplement oxygen, you can only carry so much oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then normally they stash it along the way.
Yeah.
But because the storm was so bad, all the rules of the mountains go out the window. You know, all I could hear was shouting, "Get off the mountain! Get off the mountain!" People were panicking. People were, you know, we lost a Sherpa that day. We lost a climber that day, and when I look back on it, I think, if I'd have just moved a few minutes earlier and had the experience, which I didn't have, if I'm being completely honest, and not that I was a bad climber, because I was putting my own safety at risk. I suppose now looking at it, my Sherpas. But it was a case of, you don't mess around in the death zone. And if that's a lesson that I've learned, because, you know, putting myself in this situation due to a climber who was literally dragged up the mountain and he couldn't get down himself. And then when it all went wrong, even the stashes of oxygen that you have, they're taken. You know, people are panicking, they're grabbing oxygen. And so I literally ran out of oxygen on the top of the Hillary step. And it was only because my Sherpa helped rescue this guy, which took about an hour and 15, that he managed to barter with his Sherpa
to take some oxygen.
To give us the bottle of, he had one bottle spare. Because I remember once we rescued this guy and we went down, I assisted very, very smallly. It was mainly the Sherpas, but I just assisted in helping with the equipment. And we got down the Hillary step. We sat down and he looked at my oxygen and he I could see his eyes, you know, through his goggles. He had goggles on and he's just like, and he sort of paused. He went, I'll be back in a minute. He didn't even tell me I'd run out of oxygen. So when he said that, I obviously got my finger out. I looked at it, I was like, I'm out. And why is he, and the thing about it, my team that had gone before me had all the oxygen bottles. They had 3 oxygen bottles.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like I could then go, because they were down the mountain and I've been stuck an hour and a half. They were probably near Camp 4 by then.
Wow.
No, but by the time I got back to Camp 4, in the state that I got back in, my team had been there for 4 hours.
Wow.
So that just goes to show. And they thought I was dead. They were just like, no, I come through the storm and I sort of collapse in my tent. So it was just a huge learning curve. I'm very capable in the mountains, but it's just a time factor. I appreciate, time. I appreciate why it's called the death zone. I appreciate that, sometimes time is not on your side and you just have to do the right thing. But everything's a learning curve. In my heart of hearts, I didn't go up there because I was like, I'm going to keep the whole team behind. It's just like, we're filming a documentary. I wanted to give the best that I could, best content that I could. I almost lost sight of the mission. Yeah. And, it was just like, I wanted to, really give everything that I had for the cause, which was filming a documentary, rather than looking at the situation at hand. So, but it just fueled me even more, though. It just fueled me even more to go and climb even more mountains. And after that,
Is it K2?
K2, yeah. So K2 was the next one, the highest one in the world, which is Everest. And then
K2 is vastly more difficult.
Yeah, it's technically nails. It's hard. And that's what attracted me to that mountain. So firstly was the amount of people that hadn't summited. There's more people that have been, put into outer space than have stood on the summit of K2 at the time. I don't know if that's true now.
And also the survival rate is multiples worse.
And that's what I do. I always climb with myself and a Sherpa, sometimes 2, when I do the summit rotation, because I want them to rely on me as much as I rely on them. A lot of climbers, especially with your 8,000ers, they pay all this money and they relinquish their personal safety and responsibility, thinking that because I've paid you, you're responsible. So when it all goes wrong up there, I'm going to sit back. And ultimately, that's what happened on Everest when that climber couldn't climb.
Wow.
So he was dragged up the mountain. He had to, all of a sudden, he had to do something for himself because the situation was so bad. We didn't have time. And he went down and just fell off.
Wow.
Boom. So, with K2, it was a case of, right now, this is a serious mountain to do. I've climbed Everest, I've climbed a few mountains, and I've done a lot of training ever since as well. But I just love the mountains. Do you know what I love? I love penetrating probably at about 7,500 meters. I love penetrating the cloud. Yeah. Almost where it's just like, nothing below it exists. Right. Nice. And, the peace of it. You look around, and especially because there's not many people there, you can just really, no one can come up and tell you to come down. Whatever decision you make is purely up to you, on yourself. Especially when you're traveling and going with such a small team. Now I just look at my Sherpa and go, do you think we should? Yeah, let's go. You happy, Ant? Yeah. Are you happy? Yeah. Let's crack on. And just that freedom of being above the clouds, no noise, no distraction,
it's escaping everything,
it's escapism, everything for those few hours, and just taking that time to reflect on the simplicity of being above the clouds and trying to put it all together, or trying to fit it all together for when you descend below them. All the chaos and all the noise and the chaos of life, family life, work. It's back into the system.
Plugging back in.
Back. Yes, but you know what? It's exactly that, Tom. It's plugging back in. So, that's why I climb, and I've climbed some of the smaller mountains now, just to gain a bit more experience. And mountaineering is definitely a new passion of mine. It's been a new passion of mine for a few years now, but I love it.
Amazing.
So I had two questions actually. One of them relates to both of you, and I think the display of resilience. A lot of times we kind of doing hard things, everyone's capable to a degree of doing hard things, right? So, and we kind of all enter into this, sometimes when you're kind of challenging yourself, you get into this pain cave or a place that you really need to face yourself.
Yeah.
What are the conversations that you're having with yourself to convince yourself that you can do this, especially in the times that you feel like probably giving up is easier?
Yeah, resilience comes from commitment, and when you commit to a new space, to a new objective, to a new task, you're going to learn something. Whether you succeed at that or not, once you commit, you're going to learn something, you're going to grow from it, and you're going to become a better version of who you are if you're present. This is why I always talk about being present, the power of being present in everything that you do, because there's so many lessons out there to absorb, so many 0.01% to take that we don't take. And resilience comes through commitment, because every time you commit, you're not necessarily going to commit again, but you're going to learn something from that. You might take that step back, but you've committed, figure something out, and then take a different route or a different route to where you need to be. And it's through that commitment phase that you start to realize what you're capable of, right? So you commit to something, you go, oh, it's not this bad, even though the objective is miles away. It looks like failure to me, but I don't get carried away with the destination. I just commit to this moment here, right? Break it down, I'm going to commit here, right? Commit again. The more you commit, the more you realize what you're capable of. And the more you realize what you're capable of, that's when you gift yourself a gift that only you can ascertain. And that's the gift of self-belief. Okay, nice. No one can give you that. Your mum and your work colleagues probably told you, I believe in you, but if you don't believe in yourself, then it's just empty words. People can say they believe in you all they want, right? But if you don't believe in yourself, it's just empty words. However, through being through that commitment phase and committing and failing as well, taking that step back, you build resilience. And resilience to commit. That's all it is. It's a resilience to go, right, I'm going to commit to this. And that resilience has multiple prongs, right? Psychological resilience, physical resilience, emotional resilience, you name it. There's so much that you can encapsulate within resilience through that commitment phase. And then capability comes in. I am capable of. Self-belief kicks in the back end, right? And once you get self-belief, there's not much that will phase you in life, nice. Right? And I'm not saying you'll achieve everything you set out, but there's not much that will phase you to the point where you go, I'm not going to commit to that. Yeah. Because you know the process that you're going to go through, right? And again, the more you commit, the more resilient you become. So it's just, and that's a process, a lifelong process that you will go through life, right? And if you don't go through that process, then you don't build resilience. You don't know what it's like to fail. You don't know what it's like to trip up. You don't know what it's like to actually succeed in that certain commitment, but then be forced to take a step back. Right? You take that step back because you go, right, I can't commit to the next phase, but I've committed to this. Right, how do I use this to my advantage? This 0.1% that I've tagged. Right, I need to really step back and re-attack it. Again, that builds resilience. And then you talk about physical resilience, which is about knowing your body, pushing yourself to a physical extent where you hit what's known as a pain barrier. And when you hit a pain barrier in life, I'm sure you've hit many with what you guys do. But when you hit a pain barrier, you almost get a new lease of life. And a pain barrier this is what I say to people, is when your mind is telling your body to stop. It's going, your body's screaming, stops. It's in so much pain, but not a broken bone, not a torn ligament, when you're just, you think that you can't go on. And once you realize that you've hit that pain barrier and you see it through and you work on it for me, it's about 30 to 45 minutes of staying in that zone, whether I'm mountaineering, whether I'm tabbing in the military, whether I'm on operations and I've got a load on my back, and my body's going, your legs can't do this, or your body wants to stop now. I know that I've got a 30 to 45 minute window where your body will get used to that pain. Unless you break a bone or like I said, or snap a tendon, it's almost your body can only suffer so much pain before it numbs itself out. before it goes, right, God, I've been in this pain zone for, what's the next threshold? The next threshold is breaking a bone or whatever, but you're not at that stage because you're not doing anything like that. So yeah, your body adapts, and mine does it after, like I said, a 30 to 45 minute period where I'll go through the pain barrier. And that's when all of a sudden my body's numb, I get a new lease of life, and I feel like I'm floating. And then, boom, then I'll go through that and that, and I feel another pain barrier going. Like on selection, Special Forces selection, on the final test of the mountains, of the Brecon Beacons, we do what's called exercise long drag. And it's 64 kilometers with 80 to 90 pounds on your back, so 45 to 50 kg on your back, and you have to achieve it within 16 to 18 hours. And I must have gone through about 5 pain barriers. But because I knew my body so well up to that stage, I hadn't gone through 5 pain barriers before, but I knew the pain barrier that would come. And I could feel it, and I got excited when I felt it, because I knew that give it half an hour, 45 minutes,
it's gonna be a relief
then
afterwards.
it's going to be like, you know, my body, and like I said, unless I snapped a bone, which is then a different pain threshold, then I know that would subside, that my body can only suffer so much pain before it numbs out and I go again. So, and again, then you find a resilience through that. And what I mean by resilience through that is, you know, you then don't put any limitations on yourself. That's what resilience is about. Okay, it's not about standing there and bouncing stuff off you and be I'm strong, I'm resilient. Resilient is when you're stripped down, when you're on the bones of your ass, when you are, you know, when you're suffering, and then you figure a way to get through the other side. That's what builds resilience. And that's why I say through commitment you build resilience, because you commit. You're not going to succeed all the time. You're going to probably fail a lot of that time because it's a new thing that you're taking on. But that's what really, really builds resilience. And it's a lifelong, what I love about it, it's a lifelong process that I'm going to go through, because I'm going to keep pushing myself. I'm going to keep putting myself in uncomfortable situations, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's social life, whether it's what. So resilience should be built through as you get older, as the years go by.
There's a great quote that says, self-confidence is not built by shouting affirmations in the mirror. It's by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. That was Hormozy, not me.
But that's it, right? That's me putting it in other terms, right?
That's it. It's finding those opportunities to build that self-confidence and to convince yourself that you are who you say you are and who you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much that can be learned from that, because life's going to kick the shit out of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the great thing about having a team around you, right? About having a team around you. If you've got a team of like-minded individuals like that, when you do get the shit kicked out of you, you know, I shouldn't have to turn to Dia. Dia should recognize that straight away. Yeah. Right? We talk about leadership and follow, and he should recognize that straight. Shouldn't even have to do it. Bang. He comes, and you know, you make yourself. He's making me a better person, and I'll make him a better person. That's what teamwork is about. And if you can go through that process of building resilience and becoming a better version of yourself as a team of individuals, then I'm not saying you'll achieve it. Yeah, you feel that's it. That's when that's when you go into that invincibility, that unstoppable sort of realm. And then you guess what you do? You push harder, you push further. You don't get me wrong. You fail harder, you fail further, but you're in that different zone, and it's the people around you which is super important for any growth in any individual or any organization. It's the people around you that are going to get you to those heights. It's impossible to get there by yourself.
That's it.
Nice.
And thank you so much. You've shared a lot today. We really appreciate
it. Thank you.
We didn't leave a stone unturned. I appreciate all of the lessons that you gave us and to the listeners. Thank you so much.
Listen, on to the next. We've got a lot of work to do, gents. We've got a lot of work to do together, which I'm super excited about. Listen, let's get the best out of each other.
Absolutely.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you.